I made this car virtually impossible to steal while I took it on a 6,500 kilometer road trip along the west coast of the United States. Hey guys, my name is Logan or Cream Tag, and today we're going to be going over how I basically theft proofed my Integra. These cars, along with other Hondas of the similar generation, were very well known for getting stolen or broken into simply because they're easy to steal. So like I said, I had taken this car on a 6,500 kilometer road trip, and one thing that I was a little bit worried about was it getting stolen when we were out and about doing different things. Now, of course, the number one method of theft prevention is just to leave your car parked in a safe spot. Seems pretty obvious, but there was a lot of times on this trip where we spent maybe more money on a parkade or valet parking because we knew that it was going to be safer in said place. Now, one thing that a lot of people have in either their project cars or even just older cars is a removable steering wheel. There are plenty of ways to go about doing this. You can get, kind of like your cheap classic NRG wheel and hub. It basically gives you the ability to take your steering wheel off, which is super helpful. If there's no steering wheel in the car, then how is a thief going to drive the car away? That's what I had. I had a removable steering wheel in my car. You can look at a lot more expensive options like Sparco. I think Momo makes a quick release, and I know that WorksBell is probably the best in the business, but they're also going to be the most expensive. So if you're looking for something that's maybe on the cheaper end, but you know is still going to be good, you can look at NRG. Just make sure that you're getting something new and something that's more recent in terms of when it was produced, because some of their older stuff is known to not be the safest. Also keep in mind that if you're doing this and you're removing your airbag, then you no longer have an airbag, so there's also that risk. This is maybe a better option to do in older cars that didn't come with an airbag, or maybe if your airbag is already faulty, then those are some options for you to make it a little bit more justifiable. But always keep in consideration that removing your airbag makes your car a lot less safe. So if you're going to do that at your own risk. Removing your steering wheel and taking that with you will make your car a lot less likely to get stolen, which is great. But what if the thief knew that your car maybe had a removable steering wheel, or what if they have their own steering wheel that can go on your car? Well, in that case, what do you do? And this is something that I didn't personally do just because I didn't have one, but what you can do is you can buy a steering wheel hub lock. It's basically just a little sleeve that goes onto where your steering wheel would attach, but instead of it being a steering wheel, and you put it on and you have a little key and you lock the key on it, and without that key you can't put a steering wheel on the car because it's locked. That's 2 steps of making sure that your car is not going to be stolen. Now, the next thing that you can do, and this is quite common especially with a lot of these older Hondas, and it is something that I did, is you can install a kill switch. And simply what that does is there's a number of different ways you can wire it in. You can wire it into your ignition, you can wire it in to your fuel, however you want to do it. Basically what it does is that when that kill switch is flicked into the on position, it makes it so that your car is not able to start. Say if you were to wire it into your fuel and your ignition, they try to start the car, it may crank, but there's going to be no spark going to the engine, and there's going to be no fuel, meaning it'll crank, but nothing's going to happen. Now, a lot of thieves know about kill switches, so what you're going to want to do is put this in an inconspicuous spot. Sticking it right under the dash is not maybe a good idea because that's an easy spot for a thief to find it. So make sure that wherever you put it in a very difficult spot to find, somewhere that only you can find, only you know where it is. I did this in my car, and just to test to see how well it was, what I did is I had several different friends sit in the car. I told them there was a kill switch, and I told them to find it. And even though they knew there was a kill switch and they were looking for one, they still weren't able to find it because it was that well hidden. Now, the next thing that you can do that will not necessarily stop a thief from stealing your car, but it will make it a lot easier to recover the car if it had been stolen, and that is to install a tracker. Now, these can come in a number of different ways. They can wire into the car in a number of different spots. You can kind of do a lot of research on what the best tracker is for your application. But what I can tell you is that knowing where your car is at all times is a very big sigh of relief. Even if, say, you're in a parking lot and you don't remember where you parked your car, you can pull up your app, you can see exactly where your car is parked on a map, and you can go straight to it. Make sure that if you are to put a tracker in your car, that you're going to hide it, and hide it well, because trackers are common, and so thieves will often look for them in cars, and if they can find them easily and quickly, then they will remove it. One type of tracker that can work well is an AirTag or something similar to an AirTag. An AirTag does alert any nearby iPhones that there's an AirTag if it's been with them for a while, but if you hide it really well so they can't find it, it's likely that they'll ditch the car. I've heard of many stories where people have had AirTags in cars that have been stolen. or air tags even in boats that have been stolen. And people find their car often ditched on the side of the road or at like a random rest stop because they likely saw that there was an AirTag in the car, couldn't find it, and decided to ditch the car. So install a tracker. It's a super good way of just being able to recover your car if it had been stolen. Now the next thing you can do, especially in these older cars, is install an alarm system. Now my GSR has a really nice alarm system in it, and it's fully wired into the wiring harness, so it would be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to remove without making the car not drivable. Now an added bonus of said alarm system is that oftentimes you'll get a fob with it, meaning that you'll have a fob for a car that is 30 years old, 25 to 30 years old, and my car, my GSR, is 27, 28 years old, and it has a fob, and I can unlock my car and lock it with a fob. This may sound like, well, that doesn't really matter, I mean, to someone who maybe has that, but the people watching this who don't have a fob, you know it would be really nice to have one, and I can tell you it is really enjoyable to be able to unlock and lock my car with a phone. That's an added bonus and an also really good way of theft prevention. An alarm system, the one that I have is super sensitive. If you try to open the door handle with the car locked, it'll set off the alarm. If you bump the car, it'll set it off, and it's not a quiet one, it's actually a fairly aggressive alarm system in terms of like volume and the noise that it makes. So it's a very good method of theft prevention. So the next kind of things I'm going to be getting into are going to be ones that are more for if you're parking the car for an extended period of time. These may not work for like short-term parking. You know, if you're going into a store and coming back out, this isn't maybe something you want to do because it takes a little bit more time to set up. But if, say, you're going to be leaving the car in a parkade for a weekend, or say you're going to be leaving it overnight somewhere, or a number of different things that you could be, you know, away from your car for an extended period of time, these are going to be great ways to be able to ensure that your car's not getting stolen. And the first thing that I'm going to talk about, and it's something that I've done lots, is removing fuses. Now there's a number of different fuses that you can remove. There's ones to the ignition, there's ones to fuel, but those two are typically going to be your go-tos. Without those fuses, those systems can't operate. So if you pull out one of the fuses and take it with you, say that goes to your ignition or to your fuel, then your car's not going to be able to start without those fuses in the car. And oftentimes they're very easy to remove, and thieves aren't going to often be carrying around a set of fuses with them, so they won't be able to replace it or put a new one in because they just won't have one. Now there's a number of different spots that your fuses can be located. On Integras, for example, there's going to be one fuse box that's under the hood in front of the battery. There's also going to be another one that is under the dash on the under the driver's side steering column. Both of these are easy to access, easy to get to. Just make sure that you look and make sure you're pulling the right fuses, and make sure that you check the car after, and don't lose your fuses. If you lose your fuses, then it's going to be difficult to get your car going again, so make sure you hold on to those and keep them safe. Now the next thing you can do, this one is super simple and takes no time at all, is to just disconnect one of the terminals on your battery. One thing I've seen very common actually is that people will, instead of disconnecting the negative terminal on the battery side, they'll actually remove it on the ground side on the car. And if you do that, then maybe a thief who's in a hurry will pop the hood, they'll look, they'll see, yeah, it's connected to the battery, and maybe they won't notice that it's actually not connected to the car, it's not grounded to the car. So with no ground, you're not going to get any power to anything. Not only will they not be able to start the car, but they won't even be able to turn it on. So with that issue, you know, a thief is likely going to leave your car alone. So now another option that you can do to keep your car from getting stolen altogether, this one's for you guys who want to keep your airbag in your car and you don't want to get an aftermarket wheel, is just to get a steering wheel lock. Now these things are super cheap, super easy to find, and it's basically just a bar that goes across your steering wheel, and it basically makes it so that you can't really turn your steering wheel a very far distance. And without being able to do that, a thief isn't going to be able to drive your car away because they can't turn the steering wheel far enough. These systems are pretty simple, but they're also pretty effective. Typically it's just a classic like 7-pin key, and you just put it in, unlock it, pull it off, super easy. But it'll be very difficult to take it off, and it's one of those things that if a thief was really dedicated, they could in theory get it off, you know, a hacksaw or something like that, but it's going to take you a while to get the thing off, and in that time a thief likely is going to think, you know what, this isn't worth it, I'm just going to go and try and steal a different car, or again, just leave the area altogether. So getting one of these is a really simple and cheap way to keep your car from getting stolen. Now keep in mind, this is not going to work if you have a quick release steering wheel, because you can just take the steering wheel off. But if you don't and you want to keep your airbag, or even if you just don't have a quick release in general, these are a very cheap and easy way to keep your car from getting stolen. All this information is from somebody who had their first car stolen. I had my first car stolen and I never got it recovered. So I can tell you firsthand, getting your car stolen is not fun, it is not enjoyable, and it is not fun to have to replace it. Hopefully some of these things will be helpful to you, maybe something you hadn't thought of. I really hope this video was helpful to you, and if it was, let me know in the comments down below. As always, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more content just like this. I'll see you next time. Peace.